Over the weekend, I saw Finding Dory in theaters. Now, before I go on, let me just say that the movie itself is really good, and I do highly recommend seeing it. Now, it was watching this movie that I came to a realization. Right now, we are in a golden age of CG animation. I remember some 20 years ago now, when CG first started appearing as a replacement for 2D, with shows like Beast Wars, Starship Trooper Roughnecks, and the classic reboot. And then movies such as Toy Story or insert Pixar movie here. And I thought that yes, those movies and shows made it work because they built it around it, rather than have the show be what it was and then, oh, it's got CG animation, woo, as the selling point. I knew that a lot of shows would pop up like that, and a lot of movies would pop up like that, and I had hoped that that was just a fad that would die out. And then it would only go back to the shows and movies where it was an actual stylistic choice rather than, we're CG, look at us! Unfortunately, even after all this time, I still feel that the fad is strong, and a lot of things are CG just to be CG, rather than it fit the style or the artistic choices of the show. With that said, the past year has been the single best for CG movies I have ever seen. I said when I talked about The Good Dinosaur that the backgrounds and the scenery was some of the most gorgeous and realistic I've ever seen. And every movie since then that's by Disney and DreamWorks has gone out of their way to top that. In Zootopia, I praised that as one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. And the amount of detail and just how far they went with it and how authentic they tried to make it look, even in a toony style. That convinced me at that point that CG animation could be better than traditional 2D animation. It was, however, Finding Dory that convinced me that we have gone into a golden age of CG and that each movie is just going to get better and better from here on. Oddly, it wasn't Finding Dory itself, though Finding Dory had a really big hand in this. It was actually the beginning short that was at the start of the movie. The title for that is Piper, and I strongly recommend finding that and watching that of itself. It was one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. It looked real. It passed the uncanny valley. I did not think that would be possible for a long time. The water looked real, the sand looked real, the creatures, every single thing about that movie, about that short, looked absolutely fantastic. And I will not be amazed if that wins an Oscar for Best Short. The fluidity of CG animation has also gotten far and above where I thought it was possible in recent years. Hotel Transylvania, and to the same extent Hotel Transylvania 2, have been incredible for convincing me that it is possible to imitate the traditional styles of 2D animation with CG animation, but I thought that was more because of Genndy Tartakovsky himself rather than the medium. Finding Dory, again, proved me wrong with that. There is a character in that who is affectionately known as Hank the Septopus. the fluidity of movement and just how wonderfully they animated him every time he's moving. That convinced me that yes, CG can be the equal of 2D in almost any aspect. We've gotten to the point where they are on equal footing, and I am amazed that we got here this quickly. Does this mean that I think every CG movie that comes out will be better than 2D? Absolutely not. There are a lot of movies that are still released right now that I feel are done so because, woo, CG! And there are a lot of movies that I still do feel would be better as 2D. With that said, right now, I am looking forward to all of the quality that CG movies are being given. It took a long time and a lot of the work through Disney and DreamWorks themselves. And I say Pixar as well, I'm counting them in the Disney bucket. It took those three studios going above and beyond to finally show the merits of this animation style rather than it just being a fad or something to profit off of because it's the hip new thing. I would still like to see 2D animated movies come out in conjunction with CG movies. Unfortunately, that only seems to be animes that are doing that right now. As I have looked again and again and again through the movies that are coming out lists, and I was not able to find any 2D animated movie in America. Well, that was being made in America, I should say. There are other countries that still do 2D. Europe and especially Japan are really big on 2D still, and they do CG as well, but they still have their major form in 2D. As far as Hollywood is concerned, though, it feels like they've completely given up on 2D, and that is a darn shame. To some extent, I can understand it, because the last time Disney did a 2D animated movie was The Princess and the Frog, which, while successful, was nowhere near as successful as the movies that surrounded it, Tangled and Frozen. So from a business perspective, I can see where they're coming from. It's a darn shame that they've given up completely on 2D, and I hope that they go back to it and they do both forms together. Again, having said that, I feel that CG is now on par with 2D, and I am looking very much forward to what these studios, and even smaller studios, can do with the medium as a whole now. I will not be looking at this as a fad or saying, oh, it looks good for CG anymore. Now I will be judging a movie based on the same merits I would use for a 2D movie. They have shown they can do great things with this medium, and I will be holding them to that standard from now on. It is amazing to see what we can do now in such a short amount of time. And here's hoping that they keep trying, keep improving, keep getting better. Because if they do, these will look absolutely beautiful. This has been just Math Machine rambling about my opinions on CG animation in general, and just talking a lot of nonsense about, well, my Disney fanboyism, let's be honest here. Peace out.